Hey, it's Melissa here at Twin Oaks Family Farm. Y'all welcome to our home place, to our YouTube channel. We appreciate you watching. We're gonna go in the meat bird barn. This is June 18th, 2025 as we're recording. We're just finished a flock of Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens on June 11th, 2025. And we wanna show you the barn between the flocks. Also wanna tell you what it cost us to raise this previous flock. So we ended up taking 389 finished Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens to our poultry processor. We don't have the invoice back yet for the total on what it costs to process them, but we do have the numbers on what it costs to raise them. Got the barn actually in use for other purposes between flocks, but we also have everything cleaned up from raising the birds. So we really love this barn. In fact, this is gonna really sound funny, but if it didn't have a purpose with livestock, or even if we weren't gonna repurpose it for storage or for a small business concept, this would be like a great gathering barn, a little party barn. It is so cozy in here. I know that's a little bit off the topic, but it's like 90 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and this barn feels just like a cooling breeze. This feature of the big doorways on each side of the building really helps with this cross ventilation feature that just most times makes it feel comfortable in here. And when it's super hot outside, this is just a place of like respite from that heat. You walk in and you're not overwhelmed with that heat anymore, and the sweat evaporates, and it just feels good in here. So that design concept was what we wanted in this building, because what we were trying to accomplish was being able to raise Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens through extremes of heat. Now, we still respect that when you're raising livestock, and say you put, this barn is sized for 450 Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens at finish, so at like 6 weeks old, 5 weeks old, you still have to respect the fact that when you put that many birds into a barn and they put their manure load onto the floor, that is going to impact ambient conditions. So we still have to respect that there are times that our big doorways can't mitigate the heat when you combine the outdoor temperature and the manure load from the birds. But in general, this barn is very, very effective at helping us successfully raise birds through extreme heat when we wouldn't be able to successfully a different design concept. So that's why we love this. But it does look different between flocks for sure, because we don't have any of the supplies out in the middle of the floor. We have all of our supplies cleaned up and in storage, contained within the barn. And we may have other things in the building, like in this instance, we were parking a couple of four-wheelers in here. The way the front of the barn is set up, instead of having just one set of double doors on the front side of the barn, we have two sets of double doors on the front side of the barn. So that actually allows us to park two pickup trucks in here, two full-size vehicles in here when it's not in use for meat birds. So I do want to give you the numbers on what did it cost us to raise the meat birds. So the goal actually was 400 meat birds. So we would have actually taken our cost and divided by 400 to get the cost per bird that it took us to raise that flock. And when you're raising them, if you have flock loss, as soon as you hit that goal threshold, like ours was 400, if your flock population then continues to decrease beyond that, you're just absorbing that cost into what your average production cost is for each bird. And in fact, in this flock, we actually started with about 433. So, you know, say that 433 would have made it successfully throughout the entire production. We could have taken our production cost figure and divided it by 433. Obviously, that would have brought down our per bird average. As it was, our population ended up being 389 that we raised. So every time one of those birds became a flock loss, that impacted our average price. So you really get a real feel for that correlation between flock productivity and average per bird production cost when you're in the trench of actually raising Cornish rock cross meat chickens. So flock loss is basically absorbed into your overall cost, okay? And if you have any questions about that, put it in comments. There's really a lot of interesting aspects to talking about how those costs break down and what's the difference, for example, if you lose a bird on day 4 versus day 41 on a 42-day production schedule. Is there a cost difference to you as producer? Yes, there is. But overall, when it's all said and done, regardless of when flock loss occurs, however much flock loss we experience, start to finish at any given time, when we get to the end, the production cost is what they are, and we're going to divide it by the flock population on the last day, and then that's going to be our per bird average cost of production. So no matter what quantity of birds that end up flock loss, when they end up flock loss, no matter what, we are going to absorb the cost as a producer. Now, before I tell you the cost on this flock, one thing about that is something we've noticed when we've had multiple flocks during the calendar year, we plan our feed consumption quantity for each flock. So if you do have a lot of flock loss that happens early in production versus late in production, you do end up with sometimes some feed left over that your flock doesn't consume because they needed less total feed quantity than you planned on if that flock loss was significant. So if those birds had not been a flock loss until like day 35 or day 38 or day 41, they would have consumed all that feed. But if they ended up being a flock loss back on like day 3 or 4, you might end up with a little bit of a bulk of feed left that you can carry over to your next flock. So that kind of softens the blow to the producer of absorbing some of that lost production cost. But 389 Cornish rock cross meat chickens is what we ended up taking to the processor. And the total production cost, so this is just buying the birds, buying the feed, buying the bedding, utilizing the electricity for the heat lamps to keep the birds warm enough when we had cool temperatures, and the electricity we utilized to run fans when we had hot temperatures and needed to cool the birds. That's what's included in this number that we're citing. Okay, so literally just raising them. So this could be like your production cost in total if you're butchering and processing your birds yourself. In our case, we are taking our birds to a USDA inspected processor where we independently are contracting out the processing to those professionals. So that cost is going to be on top of the cost that I'm telling you. So for our 389 birds that went day 1 to day 43 in our second flock of 2025, the total production cost was $2,900. $2,900. So that took care of just raising the birds. Some of the specifics, I don't have the list in front of me, but some of the specifics, I believe the chicks themselves were $1,020. The initial feed quantity that we estimated they would consume, where we purchased 22% complete feed, meat birds start to finish, Kalmbach feed, that was $1,380, I believe. And that was about 85 50-pound bags of feed. So like, I think that's 4,250 pounds of feed. So that was $1,380. In addition to that feed, we did buy some cracked corn. I think to the tune of, well, let's see. They ended up eating 4,800 pounds. So that was like another 550 pounds of cracked corn that they ate. So that would have been 11 bags of feed. Probably about another $110 in cracked corn. Bedding, we had, I don't know, I think the electric, I think we allow about $250 for. So I don't have the breakdown right in front of me, but I know when we totaled all that up, we were at $2,900. So when you do the math to break that down to a per bird average, what do you get? I came up with $7.45 per bird just to raise them, start to finish. Now, as I said, if you were butchering and processing your birds, other than if you wanted to figure in some wear and tear on your supplies for your butchering process, or if you wanted to figure in something for your time, or if you hired casual labor to help you and you figured in paying them, you might have some minimal expense in your butchering and processing if you do it yourself to add on to your production cost. With contracting our processing out to professionals, we are going to add a significant processing cost to our overhead. And so our general expectation is that raising the birds start to finish is about 50% of our cost, and having them processed is probably going to cost at least as much as it had cost to raise the birds. So we took those birds on June 11th, 2025 to the processor. This is June 18th, 2025. We don't have our invoice back from our processor yet, and we don't have word that the meat is ready to pick up yet at our processors. I'm sure we'll be getting that word and that invoice very soon, and as soon as we know that our poultry's ready, we want to get it because we have customers waiting for it. But we expect that invoice to be $2,900 or greater, probably a little bit greater. So in general, that seems to work out fairly consistently from flock to flock. If you're going to hire out the processing, it's probably going to cost you as much to have it processed as it had cost you to raise it. For us, that is well worth it. When we take our poultry to a USDA inspected processor, first of all, it ensures that we've got the labeling all credentialed so that we can market that successfully, and it adds value to our product from having had the double inspection process that's part of the USDA poultry inspection. And the other thing we like about it is it creates options for our clients that we wouldn't otherwise create. If we were butchering and processing our own chickens, we would definitely do whole chickens. We might do whole chickens cut up into 8 pieces and package them already cut up. We might do boneless, skinless chicken breast and drumsticks and wings in their own packages and thighs in their own packages, but we wouldn't do ground meat, seasoned meat, and we probably wouldn't do packages of individual cuts like the drumsticks, thighs, and chicken breast. Instead, it would be minimal options, whole chickens cut into 8 pieces, packaged as such, and that would be it. So for us, one of the great things about taking it to a processor is we actually create options that our clients really, really like. And our customers have expressed to us as clients, for them, that adds value to that product, that it is professionally butchered, processed, packaged, and labeled, and it was inspected during the process. And we were asked one time by Debbie at Mother Clucker's Chicken Farm. Y'all check out her channel. Debbie in Florida, USA, has a awesome chicken channel, spectacular source of information and reference. And she asked one time, can we tell y'all what they're looking for at the processor? Well, short story is on that, they want to pass disease-free and a wholesome food product. So they're going to condemn anything that comes in with any issue that is going to be evidence of disease, or that comes in with any issue that is going to indicate poor quality of the meat. They want it to be a wholesome food product when it leaves that processing plant. So that's a little bit of information on that part of finishing the flock. This is a little bit of a look at our barn between the flocks. We appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. And we're trying to work on a lot of projects going on at one time, but we really enjoy this building. So if y'all are doing projects on your own home place, homestead, at your own place, you may be more urban than we are, more rural than we are, whatever, but you don't need to feel compelled to just copycat what you see everybody else doing, because this was not anything that we saw suggested on YouTube, suggested on social media, suggested on digital content, suggested in our research. We had raised birds and basically asked ourselves, what have we learned raising them, and how do we need things to function? And that's how we're going to design what we're going to do, and that's how we're going to put our system together for what we're going to do. So we encourage you to do that as well, because your resources and your site and your situation is different from mine or the next person you see or the person you saw before. So it's awesome to tailor what you're doing to what works for you. So we encourage you to do that. We encourage you to feel confident and empowered to do that. That's what we did, and would never look back on it. Would never look back on it. We saw a lot of things about raising meat birds that we tried and we said, nope, that's not the way for us. So then we came onto our system the way we do it, and we show y'all that in our videos. So we're happy to share it, but we had to go kind of against conventional wisdom to come up with the system that works for us. So it's okay to do that. Just want to empower you to do that. So all right, y'all, thanks again. We'll see you another time. And in the words of my middle son Wade, who with his brothers and a friend, they have another YouTube channel, Backwood Boys 911. Y'all go check them out. In his words, just keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on, y'all. Thanks. God bless.